All right.
I'm there.
Oh, I was going to say, just waiting for everybody to unmute their cameras or unhide their cameras. So give it a second
cool.
here.
The closed captioning is working on the bottom.
Yeah, it's a nice addition, isn't it? So, all right. Well, we'll start with introductions. I'm Nathan Schell, the moderator for the How to Start Your Own Podcast panel. I've been producing podcasts for a little over a year. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm willing to share what partly bits of knowledge I have.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Alrighty. Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Ryan. I am a podcaster. I'm a part of a YouTube channel called Nerd Culture, where we drop new videos every week. I host and produce 2 podcasts. One of them is talking about some of the latest movies I've seen, known as the Nerdcast, and the second one is live every Saturday at 12 p.m. EST on our Facebook and YouTube channels, known as And I Quote, where I have a special guest join me every week. We ask them a few questions, find out what projects they have coming up in the future, and just have a lot of fun with it.
And my name is Royce Essig. I know absolutely nothing about podcasting, so I get to play the guy who wants to know things, audience participant. So I'm going to try to watch for our chats. You guys have anything, I'll feed them to the guys so they can get you the answers and stuff.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, I will share what little bit of info I've got with the podcast. I apologize. I actually did technically lie. I'm part of 3 podcasts, but one of them I produce. The other 2 I'm just a active participant in. The podcasts I deal with are Never Gets Old podcast, which is a general geeky pop culture, podcast. We try to do episodes once a month if we're fortunate enough to get the schedule to work out. And that deals with comic books, TV shows, movies, geekery, and, life in general, getting older, starting families and how that affects your enjoyment of pop culture. And then there's the Macgyver Podcast, which is all things Richard Dean Anderson Macgyver, with a little peppering in of our views on the current iteration of that particular franchise. But the podcast that I'm a producer for, and editor and general tech guy for, is a true crime podcast called Studying Scarlet Podcast. And we actually just celebrated our 1-year anniversary this past month. And that's a podcast where we do every other Tuesday is a true crime episode with a Fiction Friday episode that happens in the subsequent Fridays to kind of bridge the gap. And usually there's some kind of tie from the true crime to the fiction general theme, just something weird that happened in a real crime that kind of got reflected in a fictional story. But yes. So, all right. So let's see here.
So we have at least 5 people sitting in the audience there.
Hey, that's fantastic. So if anybody has questions, feel free to ask.
Give a shout out to everybody. There's Carrie, there's Aaron, there's Jonathan, there's Kathy, and Bill Hensel.
The voice. I
only said his last name because I'm like legally obligated to make sure that I say Bill Hensel. He'll kick my butt later on for that, but that's all good.
Absolutely. But all right. Well, so, go ahead.
So how about we start this at the beginning? Let me play the new guy, and I've heard both the podcasts and stuff like that, and I want to get started. What's the basic stuff that I need to get set up to do, like equipment wise first, and then how do I get it from there onto whatever streaming platform it needs to be on, or multiple ones? So let's kind of take it that way.
All right. Well, Ryan, I'll go ahead and let you start that way, since you sound like you have more of a wide net that you cast.
I try. So as far as the podcasting getting started, what you should probably think about needing is definitely try to have a good camera, or a good webcam at least. Try to have something that's such as a headset, something that's somewhat similar to what Nathan is wearing, or something else that's if you have the financial stability to do it, buy a great headset. One of the more upper echelon to upper level type ones if you want to level up. That's my video game reference there for you. So that's something you should do. And if you do want to start doing a podcast, something that I recommend to everybody who's just starting out as a podcaster, is downloading a free app on your phone known as Anchor. Anchor is a free podcasting app. You just put it on your phone, your mobile device, or your computer, and it's free to use. You can download it for free. You can use it for as many podcasts, many episodes for your respective podcast as you want. And once you're done recording it and it goes up on Anchor, it distributes it to other podcasting platforms. So it doesn't just go to people who are on Anchor. It goes out to people who are on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and other apps that are out there that carry podcasts. So Anchor is what I use for my one podcast, and another resource that I use for my And I Quote, which is the weekly live interview series on YouTube, is something known as StreamYard. StreamYard is a good resource. They have 3 different levels. If you pay a certain amount of money, you can stream to multiple platforms and not just like a Facebook page or perhaps even your YouTube channel. You can stream to other platforms like Twitch and other things such as that nature. But StreamYard is really good. It's a good way to get your name, your brand out there, especially if you have the money to do it. If you spend it on the second or third level of what is available on StreamYard.com, that'll give you choices of, putting together backgrounds for yourself or layovers for, how your videos are going to look, different layouts, if you will. So StreamYard is great. I use it, and we have different graphics so people know that it's my show. It's And I Quote. I let people know where they can find me at the end. I always try to plug as much as I can at the end, as well as for my guests, so they have a chance to promote their upcoming projects and things of that nature. So yeah, Anchor and StreamYard. Anchor is free. StreamYard has 3 different levels. If you start at the base level, you're not going to have your own choice of backgrounds. You're just going to be given what they give you. But it's a nice starting point. And if you want to, choose, or if you, have the financial stability to do it, I would recommend, purchasing the second or third level of StreamYard to really, have really, really good productions of your podcast. If you decide to make it a video podcast and not just audio. If you're strictly audio, don't feel comfortable being in front of a camera, go with Anchor. It's free, and there's no different levels. It's just straight up free. You can do it, design it how you want. And, if you need a logo or a graphic, there's a bunch of them that are already available once you start setting up your podcast and the look of it and your account. So Anchor and StreamYard, there you go.
Oh, those are great options. With the Studying Scarlet podcast, what we use equipment wise, we actually just use one of the handy dandy Zooms, and it actually has the fun cover over top of it when we're recording to help break up the pops and everything from recording. It was a very good note about the headset if you are in a situation where you need to use that. But Jess and Ashley, when they're recording, we just have them sitting in the office with that sitting in between them, and they talk and record it. Afterwards, once it's done that process, I actually port that file over onto my computer, where I have a editing software program called Audacity. It's by far not the most high-end professional quality one, but it has the ability to do change your sound levels if one person's quieter than the other, or if you have a noise in the background that's constant, you can noise isolate it and get rid of that so that it's a nice clean audio file and everything. And it gives you the ability to do layers if you have music that you want to help set the mood for the podcast or what have you. But one thing I definitely would recommend if you go the route that we do for doing our editing is definitely get yourself a good set of headphones that have noise canceling so that you don't have that ambient noise while you're actually editing, which is always entertaining. When I'm editing, I am literally lost in whatever's going on in the file. So regrettably, every now and then my wife will come in and tap me on the shoulder, and it's a true crime podcast, so inevitably it's always there describing the murder or whatever, and all of a sudden I feel the tap on my shoulder. There's been a couple times where I'm sure I've left out a girlish scream, but it is what it is. But yeah, so that's what we've used for recording our podcasts. As far as getting it out there for people to listen to and in their ears, as it were, we use a service called Whooshka, which the way it works is that it's free to have one podcast on there. They'll do a intro and an outro commercial, and then you can pick some time or some spot on the timeline for a commercial. You don't have to. You can actually have it set up where you have no commercials, but if you wave the carrot of enabling them to profit off of your product, you can get a little bit of a kickback, and they'll actually put it into more people's ears, as it were. We went from there to another service called Spreaker. Very funny names, very weird names. I understand, I know, but that one a little bit more user friendly, better options with doing the commercials and everything. And with that one, if you have it set up where you have social media accounts on like Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, I think I saw an option for YouTube. When it drops or when you post it through there, it'll actually automatically bump it to these other platforms. And you can also schedule things out too, which is very handy when you have a schedule like ours. So, but yeah, so that's our little end of the audio end of podcasting.
So let me ask a question, because this is all right. I'm admitted I'm a noob. What is the difference between like an audio? See, I always thought podcasting was just the audio end of it, and now I've learned that there are like vlogs, or I guess what you're talking about, Ryan, is kind of a hybrid of both. Is that kind of like what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a live weekly show, but it's video, not just audio. So people get to watch it on Facebook. What is it called? Facebook Live, YouTube Live, all that stuff. Because, it's good to have audio. Don't get me wrong. Audio podcasts are great, and some people prefer it that way, and that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. With me, maybe a very, very, very long time ago, I would have said, there's no way you're going to get me in front of a camera. I am no Robert Downey Jr. But I realized that if you want to have even more fun and, see people's expressions and understand where they're coming from, then you get more comments and feedback. You can get a lot of that during a live show on YouTube and Facebook, and you're streaming to multiple platforms such as Twitch. You're going to get more people involved that way. So for me, for me anyway, I get the best of both worlds. I get to record an audio podcast by myself that I host and produce, and then I get to have someone on with me during the weekend live show known as And I Quote, where I have a guest that comes in every week, and we just have a conversation. We just talk. We just say, hey, let's find out more about you, what projects you have coming up, so that we can plug them and get them going. And that's fun, because in the end, doing something by yourself is great, but when you collaborate with other people, it's even sweeter.
So far in the way of questions, there really haven't been a lot from anybody who's out there in the audience. So if you have anything, please mark it in the chat. And yeah, Bill, I've been watching the closed captioning at the bottom too, and yeah, it's off just a little bit with some of the names.
It's
Squeaker, not Streaker. Completely different things. Completely different.
Yeah, but yeah, no, the different options people have nowadays for getting their podcasts, either audio or video, have been phenomenal. Like Ryan had said with Anchor, I only had one encounter with Anchor, and that was somebody was doing a call-in type thing. If you have questions or thoughts or concerns, here's a link to an Anchor, this thing called Anchor, and he could actually pull people's audio from that and then give them an actual answer in his upcoming episode or what have you. And it was very interesting. Fairly user friendly, and that's actually something I'll have to talk to the girls about possibly using for something. So
definitely.
Here's a question from Jonathan. Are there any common mistakes or missteps you can steer new podcasters away from?
Well, one that I can say I had the foresight of mind to do is, if you do go the route where you have, music that you want to use for setting the mood of the podcast or what have you, please, I can't emphasize this enough, make sure that it is free use music, and it never hurts to reach out to whomever it is that was the composer to get their permission. That way everything is above board. It's just a good policy to have, and it saves yourself from having to deal with any kind of negative repercussions that might have down the line.
Let me hop in here real quick, Nate. One of the things you can also do is there are companies out there that also sell royalty-free music that you can use for
Yep.
video and stuff like that.
Yep.
A couple of the ones I use for film end of it, like we use Epidemic Sound, Production Crate, and Digital Juice. So you can get a lot of different themes from them. You pay whatever whatever the cost is for that.
Yeah.
But then once you have that, you're free and able to steer through the music a little bit easier. But yeah, there's nothing like putting a whole bunch of work into something and then getting it flagged because you've got copyright infringements all over it.
Yeah.
You know.
Also, don't be afraid to make a mistake, because you can always learn from those mistakes as well. Like, I've had incidences where I've had an episode go live, and for whatever reason, when I was editing it, there was a hiccup where the audio dropped out for a moment, or where there was one where there's an entire section where I had flagged it to edit it out, and through editing, I must have backstepped once too far or something. And that particular issue, or that particular moment, I had to go back in and pull it back out. And I was able to, I mean, it's fairly easy to re-upload something over top of an audio file. I imagine it's probably fairly simple with, or similar if it's a video file as well. But don't be afraid of possibly hitting a mistake, because those can often end up being overcome fairly easily.
Ryan, you got anything on that topic?
Yeah, just to kind of emphasize, yeah, royalty-free music, always use it. Don't try to go for the big music, the big heavy hitters or anything like that. Don't want to get papers in your mail. Don't want to get sued. So yeah, royalty-free is great. It's fantastic. And if you're going to work with someone to design something for you, make sure you give them the right credit for it. If they design a flyer, promotional materials, such as stuff you put on Twitter, stuff you put on Instagram, definitely thank them for that. Say credit goes to so-and-so for the creation of this logo or this graphic, this piece of marketing material. Because if you don't thank them or you don't give them the proper credit, depending on who you're dealing with or what the situation may be, you might be in trouble. So just give credit where credit is due. But fortunately, I haven't run into that situation. So yeah, definitely royalty-free music. And also try to get local artists and local graphic designers to design for you, because that's a great thing. You're supporting a community that's local to you. And also, once you give them the credit, that's going to expand their resume. And once they, start seeing their graphics show up on your show or another show that you're a part of, the more network connections you make, the more they're going to go to bat for you. So always try to keep connections to you, and try not to burn any bridges.
Yeah, and that's always hard. You definitely don't want to burn a bridge, because you don't know when you're going to come back around and have to deal with somebody that you dealt with in your early stages where you really messed up. And you need them for something. This is actually for Ryan. This comes from Bill Hensel. Ryan, do your, and I quote, guests fall under any particular category?
I mostly try to keep it with, our YouTube channel is known as Nerd Culture. So we try to keep things very, within the nerd realm, whether it's movies, TV series, comic books, anime, video games, all that type of stuff. So basically my guests would be a mixture of writers, comic book writers and artists, as well as actors and actresses, TV show creators, people who run websites for collectibles. Because me personally, I'm big on collectibles. Like, I like collecting stuff. So we had, for perfect example of that, last week was the season premiere of, and I quote, we had Jason Swoboda, who's I believe it's the chief marketing director of $7bucksapop.com, which is a Funko Pop website stationed in Maryland. So it was great. And, he got to plug $7 a pop, and I've, bought from $7 a pop long before I brought him on as a guest. So it was great. So basically it's a mixture of different people who have different, creative endeavors, whether they're a chief marketing director of a Funko Pop website, because Funko Pops are everywhere, actors, actresses, writers, creators. I try to interview as many people that are either in my wheelhouse or just in the nerd culture warehouse, because I may interview someone I may not be overly familiar with their work, or I may not be a fan of their particular, I wouldn't say brand, but like, what am I trying to say? A particular genre, but I still try to get their name out there and try to plug them as much as I can, because you never know who you're going to have on your show. And also you never know what you're going to learn from these people, because they're very, very creative and they're very smart. So the more people you interview, the better off you're going to be. There's your plug.
There you go. No, that's actually a really good way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are no new questions as of right now.
That was a great question, though. Great question.
No, that was a very good question.
All right, let me read over one. One may have popped up here. Hold on. Nope, that's just some general comments as to where to find graphic artists and stuff like that. So that's in the chat.
Yep.
So
Oh, we're not important enough? Okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, folks. That's my poor attempt at humor. It's my poor attempt at humor. It's Saturday. Let's have some fun. We're at a convention here. Like,
it's snowing. It's snowing. Come on. We are at Farpoint and it's snowing. We're virtually snowed in.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at Farpoint with as cold as it is.
Well, let me correct you there. Some of us are snowed in, but luckily we had the neighborhood people come by yesterday and shovel all the snow. So we're all fine. We're all fine here. No, thank you. How are you? Anyone catch that reference in the backstage?
Yeah, that was a good one.
You did.
That was a great
nice.
One.
So there is a question here again from Bill Hensel. Ryan, have you ever interviewed a guest that you regret? Now this may be hard for him. I'm gonna jump in here to save him real quick. This is being recorded, so he may not wish to answer said question at said time.
No.
But if he's
no, it's fine.
Go for it.
No, it's okay. It's a fair question. It's a fair question to ask. It's okay. It's okay. I have no problem answering it. So I can't say I really have any regrets because every guest that has been on my show, whether it's the new season that just started last week and this week, and then last year, they were all great. I really didn't have any qualms about them. They were great to hear their stories and hear how they got to where they are now and what projects they have coming down the line, and to hear how successful some of the people I've interviewed have a lot of successful Kickstarter campaigns, and that's been fantastic. And I love hearing about that sort of stuff. So for me, really no qualms. I don't have any regrets where I said, oh boy, this is a train wreck. This is so boring. What am I doing here? No, it's my energy. I will say this about some of my guests. Some of my guests' energy may or may not quite match up to yours truly, but that's okay because some people, we're all different. We all have our different ways of how we communicate with each other and how we speak to one another. So for me, if I got 10,000 volts of electricity and my guest doesn't have nearly as much as that, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's difficult. It's just different, but that's okay because I still keep the conversation rolling, and I got people chiming in the chat when I'm doing it, especially on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. You are going to get comments.
Oh,
believe me, you're going to get them. And some of them are going to be really good questions too. So I just let it roll, man. You just got to keep living, man. Livin. So there you go. That's all I got.
No, that's.
Yeah. Guests are awesome. Let's just put it that way.
No, that's very true. You got to keep that energy going because one of the things that most people always get disheartened by is dead space in a conversation when it's either in person, through a video podcast, or even through an audio podcast. Dead space leads to awkwardness, and that's not good for anybody. So
yep, learned this a long time ago. Try your best to not have any dead air on your programming.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's actually part of the reason why
thank you broadcasting school. You guys are awesome.
Oh yeah, no, that's probably an early lesson that they teach. Yeah, that's part of the reason why, having that background music for something like Studying Scarlet, where it is just vocals, it's no video element to go with it. That's a godsend. And it's weird how sometimes that music can actually sync up with the topics at hand, depending on what your topics are that you're talking about. So
that's true.
So, but well, here's a question for you, Ryan. Is there any particular guest that you haven't had yet? Like, is there a particular person that you'd like to have on your show that you haven't had yet? Yeah, like a dream guest.
Dream guest. Is he now? Are we talking just one person, or can I, name off a few?
We have 30 minutes.
We've got time. Go for it.
All right. Do we have time for this? I'm not sure. Okay. So here's the thing. I grew up a lot. Most of us did. I'm assuming most of us did, whether you're in the convention circuit or not. We grew up on something known as DC Comics. Okay. So I grew up watching Tim Burton's Batman, the Richard Donner's Superman, and all the other things that came after that. And because of a certain show called Smallville, I became a die-hard Superman fan because of it. Now, granted, I grew up on Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Terry Hatcher, how you doing? And that was great. But Smallville made me a bigger Superman fan than I was before. So if I had to interview somebody, I would love to interview either Tom Welling, who played Clark Kent, not Superman. Just want to point that out. He was strictly Clark Kent, and that's fine. But if the man himself came on my show, and I'm talking about the Superman for me, this is my favorite Superman. Nothing against Christopher Reeve. Nothing against him. Nothing. If Henry Cavill walked into my studio, physically walked into my studio, I don't know if I could handle myself. And also, if he was just doing it virtually, I would probably fanboy somewhat pretty hard, because Henry Cavill is a gift to mankind that keeps on giving, because Man of Steel is a tremendously underrated film. It is so good, it's not even funny. And also, he's been good in other projects such as Mission Impossible Fallout as the bad guy. He was good in that. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen Fallout yet. Sorry. But yeah, Henry Cavill, Tom Welling, anyone associated with the Superman mythos, I would love to sit down and have a excellente conversation with people such as that. Or just, I don't know, I grew up on the 90s, so maybe not, I've met a number of them, but maybe a few Power Ranger actors would be fun. Because Power Rangers was one of my jams when I was a young lad. If you can't tell, I'm a little young. So 93 was a great year for America, and that's when Mighty Morphin came out. So I wouldn't mind sitting down with a couple. I mean, I've already met them, but to like have an interview with them would be something completely different. So yeah, let's go with some DC flavor and some Power Rangers flavor. What say you?
Well, with the podcast that we've done, I have not actually gotten the chance to partake in the interviews for the Never Gets Old podcast or the Macgyver podcast. But given the opportunity to actually get the chance to sit down and have a conversation with Richard Dean Anderson about how MacGyver's impacted his life and things that's opened up for him to be able to do on a personal level, not just the business level, I think would be a phenomenal experience. Fortunately, I've had the chance to have the geek out fanboy time with him, because I did get the chance to meet him thanks to Dragon Con and Shore Leave. Got to see him at both of those conventions. But yeah, he'd be top tier on my list. I'm digging the option for Henry Cavill, just because, one, he's not just Superman, but he's really big on showing his love of geekery, and I think that's phenomenal as well. But yeah, I think Richard Dean Anderson would be top of my list. Absolutely.
That's a good pick. I remember watching the reruns of MacGyver when I was a wee lad. So yeah. Good old MacGyver.
Well, here, Royce, we'll throw that question to you. If you were given the opportunity to.
Oh man, who would I want? This is the sad thing about being just a wee older than you guys, is a lot of the people I like are no longer around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The first person that comes to mind that I would have loved to have interviewed was Robert Conrad. He was a huge, because I grew up, late 70s, early 80s. So I grew up with Black Sheep Squadron, which has been a major thing of almost everything I've touched. In some way, there is some nod to Black Sheep in there somewhere. Even in Dark Ops, there is a nod on the commissioning plaque of the Armstrong to that particular show. I would love to see that. I would have loved to have had the chance to interview Richard Hatch. I had the privilege of sitting in with a couple of my friends who had won a one-on-one meeting with him. It was either Farpoint or Shore Leave. I do not remember.
Yeah, I don't remember which one.
But it was like one of his last shows. Yeah. And just sitting there and listening to him talk as a normal human being about, hey, yeah, do this, don't do that. Just remember to chase after it or whatever. That would be great. Somebody who's alive, I would like to see. I'm going to kind of chime in with you guys. Henry Cavill, I think, would be very interesting, because I was a huge fan of his on The Tudors when he was on that. That was beautifully done. My only thing with, I really wish somebody in DC would kind of figure out what they need to really do. And I think Zack Snyder's got that chance to do that. So he might be interesting to see where the future of DC could be going in the way of film. Yeah. But I think kind of a hard thing there is you're running into people have been bombarded with Marvel and Disney Marvel for so long. Yeah. They forget that, DC is dark. The Penguin is a love of mine. There's a reason for that, because he's dark, he's waddly, he's fat, he's short. It's great. He's easy for me to cosplay. Other than that, I'd have to do midget Thanos, and we can't do that. I just can't do that. So that's not happening. But
that's good.
But Danny DeVito would be one I would love to do. You know, if you want to harken back, just because all the other stories I've heard about him from behind the scenes, I think he would be a laugh riot just to sit and talk to. You know, so that would be my wish. Apparently, it was Farpoint. Sorry,
I was going to say, can I add one more name to that list?
Yeah, go ahead. We got time.
Well, this is something that I'm sure everyone out there at Farpoint, everyone at Shore Leave is going to love to hear, because this is a big deal for those of you who are about to hear this story. I did something over the course of my winter break before I had to go back to school here in the spring. Still at college, folks. What can I tell you? But I'm going to be graduating in December, so watch out. So during my time away, I got this movie set on Blu-ray with my, Christmas money that Santa lovingly dropped down my chimney. And I watched these movies. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of these movies, the Star Trek movies, for the first time. And I watched the original. I saw 20 minutes of the motion picture, got bored to tears. Watched Wrath of Khan, thought it was I know a lot of people hold it as the Citizen Kane of all Star Trek, and that's fine, but for me, not so much. But I watched 3 through 10, and I got to tell you, I would love to sit down with Picard. I would love to sit down with Patrick Stewart, because to me, as far as the Star Trek movies are concerned, the originals, not counting the Kelvin timeline, aka the J.J. Abrams reboots, which I did see all 3 of those, and I enjoyed all three of them to a certain degree. But my favorite Star Trek film of all time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, has to be Star Trek First Contact. That film is so good. And Patrick Stewart and his crew, I love Patrick Stewart, but everybody in that movie is just so good. Everything in that movie is just seamlessly connected. And then you got Lily, played by Alfred Woodard, giving Picard the business, like, blow up the darn ship. No. And then he, breaks his toys. And then he gives the line must be drawn here, this far, no further. Like that acting is so good. And you can tell that Patrick Stewart loves doing it. He's a giant nerd in real life. So yeah, can I please sit down with Captain Jean-Luc Picard and just pick his brain for 60 to 90 minutes? Because I love Star Trek First Contact so much that I bought the full-size theatrical poster, 27 by 40 of the original Star Trek First Contact poster. And I'm going to get it framed, coming soon to a nerd wall near you. So stay tuned for that, folks, because once I get it framed and on my ridiculously good-looking wall, I'm going to take a picture of that and post it all over the internet for the world to see. So on behalf of myself, Farpoint, Shore Leave, you got your wish. I'm no longer just a Star Wars fan. I am an official Star Trek fan. There you go.
Well, welcome aboard.
Fantastic.
Thank you. It took me, how many years did it take me? 33 years, but I'm finally there.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I had the chance to hold a 5 maybe minute conversation with Patrick Stewart at a convention, and that was only because I was getting a bunch of autographs for friends. And it was one of those, I want to say something, and I didn't want to pull the whole, I loved you in Star Trek, The Next Generation. I went the Broadway route. Well, West End, I think is what they call it over there. I'd mentioned to him that I would love to get the chance to see him in Hamlet. And he set his marker down and thought for a second, and he goes, "You'll actually get the opportunity. They did film one for, I believe you call it public broadcasting system over here." I'm like, PBS, yes. Yeah, so like it was so kind of like out of left field that he probably didn't anticipate someone saying something theatrical to him. He probably looked at me and like, "Oh, Trekkie, okay, yeah, I know what this kid's going to be saying." But no, with that little bit of an interaction I had, you will be on cloud 9. Absolutely, I would be convinced.
Yeah,
he's always seemed cool at cons that I've been to. He doesn't really have a bad rep at all, even when he's like in an elevator. He understands from the time he leaves his room, these people are going to watch me. And respects the fans. And I think a lot of, I have to agree with the Trek films. I'm going to give you this, being an old Trekker.
Really? You don't look that.
Yeah. Oh, believe me. I remember when there was no Trek on TV. Anyway, and not this current iteration where there was no Trek on TV for a short amount of time. But I have to agree. I do think that Star Trek First Contact, especially out of the next gen ones, was absolutely perfect. Generations was okay. It was them getting their feet wet right after the series. I won't even discuss Nemesis. It was done by somebody who had no idea what Trek was, and you can tell because it looks like it was shot from a 1950s sci-fi film where you got the giant floating thing and everybody's standing on the bridge and they're standing here. It was like one of the worst visuals. I think had they given it back to Jonathan Frakes, I think it could have been an outstanding visual story. But the guy they had directing it knew nothing about it, and that's my problem with a lot of the stuff we're getting now. Is these guys don't understand the source material, and no offense, I understand there are people, well, we don't want the older fans, we want the new ones. The 40-plus-year-old blobs like me are the ones spending money. You still need us. Yes, the younger kids are coming up, but you got to give them another 10 to 15 bridge, years, to get you that far.
Did you like Insurrection?
I liked Insurrection, but it wasn't one of my favorites.
No, I got that.
Now I have to say I have a personal attachment to Insurrection, which is one of the reasons I love it. My mother used to work with oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. F. Mary Abraham used to work with his aunt, and when he won the Oscar for Salieri in Mozart, he had come to El Paso to visit his aunt, and my mother actually got to hold his Oscar.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of those things I don't normally put out there because she used to work with her. So I have a very personal attachment to that actor. So when I saw he was in, I'm like, this is going to be great. And I'm watching it. I'm like, this is going to be great. This is going to be great.
Slowly but surely kind of wavered.
And then, that happened. As for original Trek, because I do separate the two, because, it's like watching My Battlestar, the original one, or the reboot, which I also love, as the name knows. I compare them differently. I don't like to compare them all in one giant lump. For the original Trek films, I understand why people love Star Trek 2, but my favorite was actually 6, because I think we finally were on that road for so long. We got to see more or less how they were going to fade out. When the actors were handwriting their signatures on the screen, I'm bawling. They got tears coming out of
Undiscovered Country,
Undiscovered Country was absolutely beautifully done. The music was done, and ironically, the two that people liked the most were done by the same director. Might be something there. Maybe CBS might want to give Nicholas Myers a shot at the 3 things they promised him, but we're not going to go over that. That's something completely different. Sorry, still in counseling over the whole, passive aggressive, maybe.
Yep. One with, what is it? Someone just put in the chat. The one with the whales, that would be Star Trek 4. Voyage Home.
Yep.
Voyage Home. The one
which I thought was didn't really love it as much as everybody. See, this is the thing. I'm the odd man out, because for me, of the original series of films, the first 6, which are the original crew, for me, my favorite was 3, Search for Spock. I like Search for Spock. I really did. And then behind that, I would probably put Undiscovered Country.
Yeah. I could see that. And here again, you have to remember, when you're watching 2, 3, and 4, they're kind of a trilogy of stories because they do feed into each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Then we had Star Trek 5.
Whatever it was called, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that one. I was like, ugh, that one was nasty.
That one was bad for a number of reasons. And
yes.
I know Shatner gets a lot of shat for it.
I see what you did there.
Nice.
I see what you did there. Good save.
You've got to remember, at the time there was a writer's strike. There was all kinds of other strikes going on. The budget was constantly being cut down. When you hear the man describe what he originally had in mind for like the end scene, it was nothing like what we got.
Right.
I will say it was very much like what we got in Galaxy Quest with Gorok. That was priceless when I heard that. Saw that on the screen and realizing that Shatner wanted a rock man, and the fake Trek gave us said rock man. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's the best Star Trek movie that's not a Star Trek film. Great.
And I will tell you what, had it not been the death of Alan Rickman, I think they would have done more. I really do. Because even Tim Allen's like, we should have done more. Yeah.
Wow, that was a great deep dive into something known as Star Trek, which I'm not sure Shirley or Farpoint is overly familiar with. So
Yeah.
that's
So maybe they'll have to look into that, right?
Yeah, I'll have to look more into that. I apologize, but yeah, do we have any more questions from our millions of fans out in the audience? Because I'm
There
curious.
actually haven't been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of comments about no JJ verse, the one with the whales.
Yeah, I was going to say mostly just commentary on our ramblings.
You know, people going, "Hello, computer."
Hello, computer.
Oh yeah, like people.
Hello, Google.
Like, my friend posted the GIF after, like, before I even watched the movie of that, and I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be good. And I'm like, okay, like the comedy aspect of 4 is fine, but I didn't walk out of the film loving it. I mean, I understood what the message was, but it's like, dude, you could have done that in a 60-second PSA and not a 2.5-2 hour movie. But hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to dog them for that. And also, Scotty's weird interactions with technology was kind of funny. Computer, Can you just answer me? Computer, you're supposed to hit the key bar, like the keyboard there. It's like, wait a minute, what? It's like, these people are so primitive. It's like, what? Dude, you're in a different timeline. Get used to it.
So I know we've kind of gotten off the topic of our panel, which is actually podcasts, but I think what's kind of nice is we actually steered it into a podcast. So this is kind of fun too.
Kind of like an impromptu.
Yeah, talk about some of the veteran Star Trek fans meeting some of the newer Star Trek.
We do have a question
such as
here.
This guy.
How do we go about getting our guests?
Well, you go to a convention, you grab a baseball bat, and
Well, I can say that doesn't generally work, Royce.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure that's the best method to use. Am I right?
No, generally not, unless you know them very well. No, I know with the Never Gets Old podcast and the Macgyver podcast, the gentleman that is the host, his name is Mac Jackson. That is his actual name. I keep telling him his middle name is Action, just because the alliteration is phenomenal there. What he does is he'll reach out to an actor, actress, writer, stunt coordinator, anyone that was involved with anything from Stargate, MacGyver, comic books, anything and everything, and he'll reach out to them and just say, this is what we do, this is what we're about. We can't obviously pay you for your time, so we understand if the answer is pound sand. But more often than not, he generally does get a lot of feedback from people. Hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. I'm generally available from here to here. Let me know if that works for you. So generally, it's just, reach out and ask. I mean, the worst they could say is no.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, that's very true. For me anyway, the reason or how I'm able to get my guests is that there's a YouTube channel, there's a group of people out there, and they're called HWWS Web TV. Hanging with Web Show Web TV is the full name of the people out there. And they help distribute our content to more and more people. So, and I quote, is streamed on their channel and on their page, because it's just another way for our content to reach more and more viewers and to get our names out there, right? So because of that, and because of the connections that are in that group of people known as HWWS Web TV, there's someone there who puts me in touch with creators, whether they're writers or actors or, authors in general, that kind of stuff. So I was in the right place at the right time when Nerd Culture, us as a team joined up with them or started working or collaborating and working alongside them. And because of that, I'm able to get the guests that I have on my show. Some I do reach out on my own. Others is because of, a resource that I have that's been made available to me, as well as everyone else who's a part of HWWS Web TV. So in a way, it's about being in the right place at the right time. But at the same time, if you personally want someone on your show, definitely reach out to them. Seriously, if you're a big fan of their property or a big fan of their work in general, reach out to them on email. Email is best, I would say. If you want to reach out on Twitter and Facebook pages and use Messenger, that's fine too. But email is I think is somewhat better, and it's more professional. You send them an email, you say, hey, this is who I am. I'm from this YouTube channel. We're big fans of your material. We've seen your projects. Would you be willing to, sit down with us for an interview? We would love to have you on the show. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Is that all right with you? And if so, please let us know some days and times that work best for you. So not only are you telling them who you are and why you want to have them on your show, but you say, hey, let us know what days and times work for you, and we'll work with it. And they'll get back to you. So yeah, there's some tips right there for you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're coming up to the 10-minute warning here.
Already?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Who knew? Time flies. There are a couple of questions that have popped up here.
right.
This seems to be coming from Bill. William Hensel, sorry.
Bill? I don't know. Yeah,
I know. I said the B word.
Sorry.
Is there such a thing as sounding too professional for a podcast?
Wow. That's a deep dive. That's a $500,000 question there, Regis Philbin.
Yeah, that honestly, I don't think there is such a thing as too professional. I know there's the counter of not sounding professional enough by having a lot of background noise or audio levels askew and everything. But no, I think the more polished, the more professional a podcast is, the more overall appealing it is to people because they don't have to strain to listen to one person participating in the discussion over another, or hearing them over, background music or what have you. So I don't think there is such a thing as too professional sounding wise.
Yeah, for me, like when I was a much younger person, I was green. I was getting into the swing of things. I wasn't quite sure how to navigate this world of podcasting, but then once I started, listening to some people and hearing their stories, and then they gave me some tips, and then I was in the right place at the right time. And now Nerd Culture, as well as myself, have all these resources now. Now we really know how to go about it. Like when I send an email to somebody, I'm a lot more professional about it and respectful of other people's properties and time than I would be if I were trying to do this 20 years ago when I was green and just breaking into the I wouldn't say the business, but the podcasting world and seeing how it would go. But nowadays, I'm pretty good about it. And everyone who has been on my show, or if I interviewed somebody, I've gotten great feedback from them. Like after the interview, I've heard some feedback from some people telling me how good of a job I did. When you get that kind of feedback from not just your audience, but your own guests, that's a big deal. That's a huge confidence booster. So make sure you look out for that. But no, I don't think there's any problem with being too professional, because I'm more professional now than I would have been 20 years ago when I was just a little kid growing up in the neighborhood. So there you go.
The other question William Hensel.
Hi, William.
Is how might a potential guest make themselves known to a podcast? So let's say you want to be on somebody's podcast. What do you think would be the best ways to approach that?
I mean, for me, I would think the flip side of seeking a guest for a podcast, reach out, very professional manner, and let yourself, be known to be available for whatever particular topic that podcasting question might be involving. I mean, that would be my quick take on it.
Yeah, I think if you would want to be on a podcast, you would have already listened to it, so you would know right off the bat if they even take guests or not. If it's one of those they don't take any guests, don't waste your time.
But stroking their ego, so to speak, probably doesn't hurt either. Like, hey, I've been listening to your podcast for however long it may be around.
I don't see any more messages as of right now. Oh, 5-minute warning. Ooh.
5-minute warning.
Time flies, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed.
Yes,
crazy.
it is.
As soon as you start deep diving into something known as, what is it, Star something? Oh yeah, Star Trek.
Sequest.
Sequest, which by the way, I want to watch that because I have a friend who's a diehard Sequest DSV fan. So I need to sit down and watch that show because I like the synopsis and I like the cast, and visually from the DVD cover of it anyway, looks cool. And I like sci-fi. And by the way, who doesn't like sci-fi?
I mean, yeah.
Why not?
Nobody's sitting on this panel right now.
I know, right? So yeah, Sequest DSV. It's on my list of things I want to watch.
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to do a rewatch of Babylon 5.
Oh,
I am currently,
that's
and I
another
will,
show I get to
and I
see.
will tell you that's nice, especially right now that it's on HBO Max, because I have been sitting through all of that and just, man, it's been crazy, And I know Sequest is out on one of the streaming channels right now, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Peacock.
Yes.
It's free to watch on Peacock.
Oh, nice. Well, in that case, I know where to go.
When you get to season 3, the last 3 episodes are actually out of sync.
Right.
Like the very last episode you're going to see should have come up 2 episodes before.
Got it.
So just let you know that it is completely a little askew.
That's good stuff.
And yes, I have to agree with Jonathan. Just posted a message here a moment ago saying it had its own gritty reboot in season 3. You're right. Season 3 of Sequest is completely different than seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah,
that's what my friend tells me.
And when you brought on Michael Ironside, I was like, yes, all right, finally a captain is going to do something. Thank you for giving me Avery Brooks instead of Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeehaw, Chester's dead.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that's a Michael Ironside reference. For those of you who grew up in the 80s and watched a little indie film called Top Gun, yeehaw, Chester's dead.
Chester's
Yeah.
dead.
You went below the hard deck does not count.
So we're probably down to the last couple of minutes here, I would guess. So let's just get ready to sign off here.
Yeah, we can plug our respective podcasts.
Yeah, this is the time for plugs.
So Ryan, why don't you go first?
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you, Nathan.
You're
Well, for those of you who are interested, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at It's Nerd Culture. Check out our YouTube channel. New videos go up each and every week, which is including the podcast known as And I Quote. If you want to listen to the Nerdcast, download it on Anchor, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you download your podcasts. New episodes drop each and every week. So check it out, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. And thanks for having me.
Excellent. And for me, the podcast that I edit and produce is Studying Scarlet Podcast. Studying Scarlet on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere, everywhere that you can get the audio portion of podcasts. That's that podcast that I edit. They're also on Twitter and Instagram. Studying Scarlet Pod, I believe, is the username on both of those. Also a Facebook page. The other podcast that I help host from time to time is Never Gets Old Podcast and the Macgyver Podcast. Both of those have respective Facebook pages, and I believe the podcast names are their Twitter handles and Instagram. I believe Max set up recently, so check us out there. But yeah, Royce, anything you want to shamelessly promote?
No, not ever. Logo wear. Anyway, this side. Sorry, I forgot it's mirroring me. It's totally throwing me off. Yeah, Dark Operations Terminus. For the fans of that, we are still working on that. We've had some major hiccups. The second editor went down this week due to a motherboard, and that's the really expensive computer, not mine. So we're hoping by next Farpoint to have a lot more to show to everybody. We did shut down the website because it just wasn't being used. So you can find us on Dark Ops Terminus on Facebook. Look us up there. Any email, if you want to get in contact with us, is darkopsinfo@gmail.com. Other than that, guys, I know we're wrapping up here. I'm just waiting for Robert to give us the secret little, you're all done. And
yep. I was gonna say we're creeping closer and closer to that
that magical time.
But yeah, no,
this was fun.
Now it's time to say goodbye.
I was gonna say it's closing time. No, I'm sorry, that's a different vibe.
Different vibe. Yep.
Well, if you want that vibe, you can go over to what is it that they have over here? This Farpoint Con on GatherTown.
GatherTown.
If anyone wants to hang out there for a little bit, I am currently on the first floor, the upper floor, hanging out there. I'll hang out there for probably about maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I got to get back to hanging out with my kid because I've got him this weekend. So, guys, it's been a pleasure doing the podcast with you. I want to thank Robert, who's our technical dude. Robert,
yes, Robert has been doing a phenomenal job. Thank you, Robert,
for making this easy on all of us. And as soon as they say we're done here, we're done. But if you want to hang out for a little bit, I will be available, as I said, on that. I don't do Discord yet because my son hasn't taught me how to use it yet. So look, I just got an Xbox One this past week. I'm still trying to figure out controls. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a break. Still new to this era of the Enterprise.
Yes, very much so.
I will be available for any kind of questions or comments, what have you, through the Discord, though my replying might be a little delayed as I have to go to Lowe's and play handyman. So,
oh boy, I'm in the Discord room for Farpoint. So if anyone's got any questions, hit me up. I'll be there. My phone likes to keep buzzing every 2 seconds with notifications from Discord. So go ahead, send me a question. Love to hear from you. But this was fun, everybody. It was good to see everybody. Good to meet you, Nathan, Royce. Good to see you again. You don't look a day over 25. So, yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. Time's up, and we're gonna log off here.
Yeah. So no, that was good.
I guess we're done now.
Yeah.
Oh, time to hang up. Bye, guys.
All right, see you guys.
See you, fellas.
How the heck do I log off?